me another round of applause. I would now like to call upon Ms. Kelly Michaud and Ms. Sarah Bell to introduce George, Class Peters Jr., for his retiring address.
Delaware FFA. It is our honor this afternoon to introduce your state treasurer, George Class Peters Jr., to give his retiring address. While many of you have only known George for his year of service, we have had the privilege of knowing George, or as we call him, GCP, for over 5 years. There are many things that we have loved about George in that time and have seen many of those characteristics bleed into his amazing year as your treasurer. To summarize them, we have created our top 5 things that we love about GCP that we wanted to share with you today. So number 5, George is connected. He has 0 problems meeting new people. This is probably one of his favorite things as a state officer. Whether it be Brianna Holbert, Sonny Perdue, or any of our many FFA members here today, he's always up to make new friends. However, he's also made some friends in high places as well. Last year when we were planning our legislative breakfast, he came into my room and said, Lisa just texted me, and she said she's not going to make it to the breakfast, but to keep her on the list for next year. And I was like, Lisa? He's like, yeah, Lisa Blunt Rochester. I was like, oh, George is on first name basis and texting our U.S. Congresswoman. He has an amazing ability to meet people and make instant connections.
Number 4, George loves to travel. George has been traveling with us since he was a freshman, by air, by bus, and by van and suburban. While we could go on and on with many memories of our travels with George, we can summarize with a couple of tips if you ever go anywhere with him. First, he never travels without a giant bottle of lotion. I can tell you, due to specific instances and multiple experiences in Louisville, especially at like 6:30 in the morning when we were headed to livestock judging, and George, his lotion bottle was not good. Make sure that the bottle is securely fastened, is in a bag, and that will not leak or explode, by the way, in a Suburban. Secondly, with FFA, he needs multiple sets of official dress because nobody we know gets hotter in official dress than GCP. Lastly, make sure he has a charger for his phone because he has more cell phone battery issues than anyone we know. I'm talking like plugging the cell phone in every couple of hours. Be prepared to laugh because traveling with him is a lot of fun and you will have the best time. We will miss every single thing about traveling with George this coming year as we travel for the first time without him in over 5 years.
Number 3, George is a negotiator. I can't tell you the number of times I've been sitting at my desk at Smyrna High School. George would walk in a hot, frazzled mess and tell me, Kay Shawty, we need to talk about this assignment. Or, Kay Shawty, do you know how much stuff I have going on right now? Or, Kay Shawty, we need to talk about this FFA, and you can put anything in there because I need more time to do it. And inevitably, this would lead to a long, drawn-out scenario that he had taken the time to plan out, and it would be better for him. And after much debate and negotiation, we would agree on something, but I can always say George has never let me down. He and I have planned so many events in the past 5 years, and I can honestly say at no point has he ever let me down. He's a negotiator, but he has developed an impeccable follow-through, even if it's at the last minute.
Number 3, George's infectious laugh. We all know it, and we all love it. We could hear it coming down the Ag Wing hall while he was a student, and it brought us joy hearing it during state events throughout this year. If you haven't heard it, then you need more time with GCP, because he has an incredible sense of humor, and when he laughs, you will join in immediately. He has been able to take the tough down times you experience while on our officer team, find humor in them, and bring the rest of the team up. At times, when we have been stressed to the max, we were always able to depend on George to do something or find something humorous to lighten the mood and keep it positive.
And finally, and most important, number 1, George loves his FFA family. This needs no further explanation. Simply put, this organization means the world to him. I've had the privilege last year of editing his State Star application, including the 9,000 character personal history portion of his application. After spending so much time with him over the years, I didn't think there was anything I didn't know about him, but I was wrong. I learned that FFA and Ag wasn't something that he really wanted to do when he began high school. And FFA and Ag just wouldn't let him go. Even though he liked it in middle school, he actually went into the allied health pathway and then dropped Ag completely. However, with the support of the much beloved George Class Peters Sr., GCP found his home in the Ag wing at Smyrna High, and he's never looked back. I can't imagine what the 5 years would have been like without George in my classes, but can I say to you, George, wherever you are out there, that I was just as lucky as you were that you came to find yourself in that giant room at the end of the Ag hallway.
So while we could go on and on about why we have learned to come and adore him, we are sure you're ready to hear from the man himself. It is our honor to introduce to you, to give his retiring address titled, The Power of Difference, your 2018-2019 Delaware State FFA Treasurer, Mr. George Class Peters.
brought us the formal Future Farmers of America. 1935 brought us the new Farmers of America. 1965 brought us the merger of the NFA and the FFA. And 1969 brought us the full-fledged enrollment of female members. Fast forward to 2017, we're at the 90th National FFA Convention and Expo. Brianna Holbert was elected as our first African-American female president. This organization has made continuous strides to support an increasingly more diverse community. Now, one of my favorite experiences as an FFA state officer was a trip to Washington, D.C. Now, being Delawareans, that may not sound spectacular, but this was an experience like no other. Me and my fellow state officers and some state officers from around the country had the opportunity to experience the very first National FFA State Officer Summit. We spent some time learning about the importance of advocacy. One added benefit of this trip was a guided tour around the national memorials. So the national team placed a grand importance on reflection, quiet reflection. Now, if you spend an extended amount of time with me and my team, you know that us being quiet is a bizarre occurrence. But there was one memorial in particular that I found empowering. The quote on the monument read, "Out of a mountain of despair, a stone of hope." This quote resonated with me for the remainder of my time in Washington, D.C. You see, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a gentleman and a scholar. His philosophy of acceptance and nonviolence differed greatly from the preconceived determinations of his timeline, and that made him a leader. Dr. King refused to let the perceptions bring him down. He refused to allow them to think that because he was African American, he was of an inferior people. Jim Crow laws, segregated school districts, poll taxes, literacy tests, all things, injustices that he had to fight against. But he maintained his personal brand of courage throughout his fight. He knew that this was best for him and those that looked up to him. Dr. King refused to let others' preconceived notions of himself delay the life-changing work that he did. Dr. King worked to empower the civil rights movement of 1964 to deliver full and unadulterated civil rights to all citizens, no matter what your color was. Amongst other things, Dr. King fought for judgment based on character rather than skin color. As an African American student, I found it difficult to find my home in agriculture. My father urged me to pursue an ag pathway as early as the 7th grade, but he struggled to realize the differences that were associated with the culture in Ghana, West Africa, versus here in Smyrna, Delaware. I didn't wear camo casually. I had no desire to fish, and the start of deer season was the farthest thing from my mind. I feared that I wouldn't fit into the singular story of an ag kid. But even more, I feared that I would be rejected by those that did. If only I had the foresight that my father possessed, I would have gladly enrolled in Miss Rouse Agri-Science 1 class. Yet I was young and unsure. If only I had made the decision to be more complex than a stereotype. Chimamanda Ngozi once said, "The singular story creates stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. And that, my friends, is the critical misunderstanding. What I failed to realize back then was the power of difference. The ability to take change head on and roll with the changes as they came. One aspect in the ag field that displays the power of difference is the diversity of careers offered. One aspect of the FFA that displays this diversity is career development events. As a matter of fact, the one aspect that I didn't find daunting in the FFA was the Agri-Science Fair CDE. Now, the Agri-Science Fair had piqued my interest. The opportunity to develop an experiment and present it seemed all too easy to be a competition. So the 2013 Agri-Science Fair was the first time I put on the blue corduroy jacket. It was loose fitting, it had members stitched across the right breast, and it held a slight purple hue to its color. But nonetheless, I was able to win the Agri-Science Fair, and that was my very first success in the FFA. It was a warm June day here at Delaware State University 6 years ago. Now, this success led me to my very first national convention. I was highly enlightened. The ag industry was no longer just sows and plows, but it was rather filled with technology. The room wasn't just farmers sitting around talking about the almanac, but rather scientists and leaders and innovators pondering the impact of the ag industry. An industry that is the backbone of our nation. I had truly underestimated this community of movers and shakers. Throughout my time at the FFA, I came to realize that looking past skin color, I was able to see the exceptional passion and purpose of these people. I came to realize that I had the passion to give back, because the FFA was not an organization of receiving, but rather of giving. I had the desire to inspire the next generation of leaders through agricultural pursuits. I wanted to do for another student what Javon Townsend had done for me. Javon was a state officer when I was a middle school member. Javon showed me that there was no color barrier to the love of agriculture. He showed me that I could be a state officer. Javon allowed me to feel represented in the FFA, which allowed me to feel at home, the aspect that I felt most was lacking. He let me know that to make positive change, all I had to be was unapologetically me. The National FFA organization has allowed me many opportunities that I cannot compare to. First of all, I was able to become 4th in the nation at the Agri-Science Fair. I became the state star in agri-science research, and I was able to build a rapport with our United States congressional delegation. But more importantly, I was able to gain confidence in myself. I was able to truly comprehend the values of servant leadership through this, the most rewarding experience of all, a year of servitude with the Delaware FFA. The National FFA organization started off as a small group of farmers, yes, but transformed into a dynamic instrument of change and impact for our generation. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. refused to let others' perceptions of him, preconceived notions, stop his path and his journey. This naive city boy overcame his aversion to touching dirt and got excited about getting his hands dirty with the FFA. The commonality between the National FFA organization, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and myself is that we had to overcome limitations and perceptions, even if they were placed on us by ourselves, to be unapologetically us. When we allow stereotypes to box in our individual abilities, we lose the power of difference. This room is comprised of members of all ages, races, desires, and interests gathered together to celebrate these individual abilities. We need to stop letting perceptions hinder progress. We need to allow ourselves to realize that the power of difference empowers us to express our unique abilities. And this allows us to make positive change. And when we make this realization, then we are able to be the stone of hope in the mountain of despair. Delaware FFA, allow the power of difference to empower you.
For Class Peters Jr., my Smyrna FFA brother. Thank you for the endless laughs, the constant screams, the multiple excuses for always being late. George, you truly define excellence. We all love you. Love Josh, Jillian, Zach, Josh, and Trey. Delaware FFA, your 2018-2019 Delaware FFA State Treasurer, George Class Peters Jr.